Good evening, folks. I see that there are three people on here. How is my audio? Gloria, thank you very much. How is my audio, ma'am? If you can please tell me. Luis, thank you so very much. All right. So today we are going to be discussing use of force. Essentially, we're going to be talking about self defense, the level of force that you can use against somebody else. And hopefully, it'll just branch off into a conversation that we can have. But I'm going to do some boring stuff right off the bat. I'm going to go through chapter 9, and I'm just going to go down the chapter until one of you guys has something specific that you want to ask. But before I do get into that, I do have two questions from some folks that had some specific questions more closely related to the stuff that we discussed about last week. So they asked about carrying one carrying a handgun in your vehicle while on a school campus, like say you're a parent picking up your kid or something like that, and you drive onto the parking lot. Are they going to get into any trouble? So let's open up section 4603 of the penal code. I'm opening it up now, that way I can look at it real quick. That way I can give you precisely what it says here. And I do have to give you guys a disclaimer here, and it is right there at the bottom. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. I'm simply telling you guys where you can find the laws. That way you can make educated decisions as to how you're going to go about your day and defend your family. I don't want to get myself into any trouble here. So 4603 of the Texas Penal Code is places weapons prohibited, and A1 specifically talks about schools. So we need to take a look at the vocabulary that is used there, and it says premises. So if we go back to the chapter 4601 or section 4601 of chapter 46, and it defines the word premises. The word premises means a building or portion of a building. So 4603 A1 says the premises of a school. So that means the building of the school. That is what that means. It does not mean outside, does not mean the grounds, does not mean anything like that. So that is A1. But on A2, oh, I'm sorry, on A, okay, on the grounds which any activity sponsored by the school or institution is being conducted. So I have a video on YouTube that breaks it down a little bit more. And I looked up an old attorney, a Texas Attorney General opinion, and it stated that almost anything that the school decides can be considered a school-sponsored activity or an activity sponsored by the school, specifically release. So they're being released from school. That's when most parents go to pick up their kids. The school can establish or determine that to be a school-sponsored activity. So if there's nothing going on in the parking lot, it's essentially not a violation of that code there. But again, I'm not an attorney. But if there's something going on the parking lot, like band practice or some other event, even dismissal, that could be considered a school sponsored activity. The only problem is that in my opinion, it would really suck if I got in trouble for something without even being told that it was wrong. Like you go pick up your kid, there's no sign anywhere that says anything about you driving into the parking lot, or that the school or the district has determined release to be a school sponsored activity in violation 4603, or that there's band practice or something like that going on. So it would really, really suck bad if you got in trouble just going to pick up your kid. They can also determine how it is that you carry. So what I would do in order to be on the safe side is I would just make sure that it's not visible by anybody. That's essentially it. Um, because there's a whole lot of things that police officers need to do in order to get into your vehicle to begin with. So I'm a police officer. I know some of you guys don't like cops, but that's besides the point. I'm a cop here trying to tell you, or trying to explain to you, some of the things that are out there that for your benefit, because I don't think it's fair that the police know certain things and you don't. So I want you to know the same things that the police officers know as well. So an officer needs something in order to get into your vehicle. They can't just get into your vehicle for no reason. So if a cop asks you, "Hey, can I search your vehicle?" You have every right to tell him no, especially if you drive into a parking lot somewhere. They say, "Hey, can I search your vehicle?" No. Now, if they have probable cause because it's an automobile and there's an automobile exclusion, they can search your vehicle if they have PC. But if they don't have any PC, they're just asking you. Um, yeah, but they need PC for the search, not PC for the stop. Say a cop pulls you over somewhere on the street for violating some traffic code, and they go ahead and ask you, "Hey, can I search your vehicle?" And you say no. Well, that traffic stop is not PC for the search. They need additional PC to let them know that there's, or to give them the probable cause to believe that there's contraband or something inside the vehicle. So, what I would do as a parent, I'm going to go pick up my kid. I'm not going to drive home, and I'm not going to go home and drop off my gun anywhere. I'm just going to go pick up my kid, and it's not going to be in plain view. That way, I don't have any issues or any trouble. But um, now that we're on this topic, you can always get in trouble even if you didn't do anything wrong. Not everybody knows the law. Not every cop is just as good as the next cop. So, if you would like to look into a program such as U.S. Law Shield, they provide you with an attorney 24 hours, 7 days a week. Lord forbid you get yourself into some trouble or you find yourself in a position that you don't want to be. It would be greatly, greatly beneficial. So, that was the first question that I had. The second question was, where do I find that list of non applicability that I discussed the last time? Non applicability being when Section 4602 does not apply to you. Section 4602 being unlawful carrying of a weapon. So, when does unlawful carrying of a weapon, that section not apply to you? So, let me get to 4615. Now, 4615 is specifically titled non applicability. So, if you're a police officer, Section 4602 and 4603, prohibited places, do not apply to you. If you're a parole officer, engage in the actual discharge of your duties, community supervision, engage in the actual discharge of your duties, essentially some type of government employee while executing your duties and you're carrying a firearm, you are exempt. Now you can be a paramedic or a firefighter that is armed, and some of these prohibited places do not apply to you because you are essentially a government employee working. Um, so like say somebody's having a heart attack in a bar, it's 51%, right? It's a prohibited place. It's a felony if you go in there with a firearm, but you're a medic. You're not a police officer, but you're a medic and you're armed. Uh, Technically, it does not apply to you according to 4615. So you'll find it in 4615 if you have any questions regarding any of that. So since we're not really on that topic, I'm going to go back to chapter 9. So, Chapter 9 of the Texas Penal Code is all about the use of force, when it is that you can defend yourself, the level of force that you can use against somebody else for various different things, like defending yourself, defending yourself against certain attacks, right? Certain level of force, defending somebody else, defending your property, defending somebody that you don't even know, defending your loved ones. Now that we're on this topic, have you guys heard of what's going on in Pittsburgh? It's kind of crazy if you have not heard of what's going on in Pittsburgh. I think it is kind of nuts. But let me just tell you real quick what's going on in Pittsburgh. So, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is home to more than 310,000 people, and they're supposed to have around 900 officers there. Well, they don't have enough officers to staff, so they're so short. They're essentially going to stop taking the vast majority of calls unless they are certain emergencies where the offender is still present. Crazy. And I think between 3 a.m. and 7 a.m., all your calls are going to be sent to, or they're going to be placed on hold until the next shift at 7 a.m. Something like that. But that is absolutely nuts. Imagine if you lived in a place like that and you had to defend yourself. Yep. So Marcos Nieto here, from 3 a.m. to 7 p.m., there will be no coverage, I believe. That is crazy. So what is it that you would do? Um, I am one to support your ability to defend yourself. my view, as many of you may know that have gone through some of the trainings with me, that if something is happening to you, you are the one in the position to help yourself. You are in the best position to help yourself because somebody else has to go and try to help you, right? The police have to respond to whatever it is that's happening to you. But if something's happening to you right then and there, you are the one that is in the best position to help yourself. So can you? That is the question. Are you unsure of yourself? That is another question. So that's some of the things that we're going to try to clear up today. The things that you can legally do in the state of Texas to defend yourself. Now, if you're watching, you're not from Texas, the laws of your state may be very, very similar. Texas is a standard ground state, right? Essentially, in the state of Texas, at the point that you are legally justified in using force, you can do so and you have no requirement to retreat. That is a stand your ground law, right? That is what it is. Then we have the castle law or the castle doctrine, which is a little bit different, essentially saying that your home is your castle. You have the right to defend your home and or your vehicle because it's an extension of your home, and or your business because essentially it is an extension of your home. You have the legal right to defend yourself in those three places and pretty much anywhere else. Um, so let us see here. Let me get back to chapter 9. So, chapter 9, just like most other penal code chapters, is definitions. 903, confinement as a defense. 904, threats as justifiable force. So, 904, threats as justifiable force. So, let me give you this example. Somebody comes onto your property and you're threatening them to leave, and because you don't want them there anymore. What level of force can you demonstrate or use against somebody else? Are you guys familiar with the use of force continuum? Anybody here? Well, the use of force continuum is essentially the ladder of force. So at the very bottom of that use of force continuum is uniform presence or your presence, right? Just you being there is considered the lowest level of force. Excuse me. Now, just above that is verbal commands. So you telling people get off my property. You um, threatening them somehow. That is uh, the next level of force. The thing is that in 904, threats is justifiable force. There is something that needs to exist. So whatever it is that they're doing, if they continue it, the level of force that you are threatening them with must be justified if they continue doing what they were doing. So, for example, you are justified in using deadly force against somebody else if they're threatening you with serious bodily injury or death unlawfully, right? They're threatening to seriously hurt you or kill you. So, you can use deadly force against them. Now, on the other hand, we have somebody trespassing. So, that is one of the most common examples or situations that people ask about. You have somebody trespassing and you want to threaten them to leave your property. Say you threaten them with serious bodily injury or death, you threaten them with deadly force, and they continue the trespass without any other existing circumstances, like they're not carrying a firearm, they're not carrying some other weapon, they're not threatening you in some other way, they're just on your property when you don't want them there. Can you use can you threaten them with deadly force? So if we look at 904, if they continued the criminal trespass, is there a point of them continuing the criminal trespass where deadly force will be justified? And the answer to that is no. That will never, ever happen. So if they continue the criminal trespass, there's no point in time where deadly force will be justified in defending your property. Defensive property is section 941, 942, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So now, if there were some other existing circumstances, like they're putting you at risk of serious bodily injury or death, or carrying a firearm, not just any firearm, but they're doing something with the firearm that's putting you at fear, the reasonable fear that you're going to be hurt, then sure, you can threaten them with that deadly force. Well, I'm not telling you to threaten them with deadly force. I'm just saying if other circumstances exist, it's more, it would appear more reasonable in that case. So just having a firearm alone is not the only circumstance or the only thing to consider. So depending on where you live, like I live in South Texas, I live out in county. I don't live inside the city. So if one day I see a dude walking across my backyard with a shotgun, it probably wouldn't be super strange, depending on who he is and what he is doing. Only because during dove season, it happens all over South Texas where somebody shoots a dove, it lands in the neighbor's yard, somebody jumps a fence or walks across property lines to go pick it up. They're not posing any threat to anybody, but they are on your property with a firearm. I would hate to use force against somebody under those circumstances when I probably would not have to. Sam Ortiz. Let me see. Oh, wrong one. Sam, let me see. What's the new version of the penal code? It's essentially um, almost all the same. There's a new one that's going to come out because we just went through legislative session. So there's a new one coming out pretty soon. But the vast majority of the stuff is fairly up to date. Just certain things are changing as we go. Can you go in depth now? Dylan, can you go in depth of defending your property when you get a chance? Absolutely. So let me get into that now. So if we go to 941 of the Texas Penal Code, that is force to defend your property, the level of force that you can use to defend your property. Now, you can use reasonable force other than deadly force to defend property against somebody's interference with the property. So it's criminal trespass, it is theft, it is criminal mischief, um, just essentially those three things. Somebody's unlawful interference with the property. You can use force other than deadly force to stop them from interfering, or to prevent them from escaping with the property if it's like a theft or something like that. But it needs to be in fresh pursuit. So, say you look out your window and somebody's walking off with your lawnmower, you can go out and take that lawnmower from them. You can stop them from taking your lawnmower. Um, but it has to be in fresh pursuit. So, say it's a week later or it's a few days lapse that your lawnmower's missing, it's not there, and somebody tells you, "Hey, well, I saw your lawnmower 3 houses down. I know it's yours. It's in their backyard." Well, that is no longer fresh pursuit. You're probably going to have to call law enforcement to help you do that. You shouldn't go and do it yourself. Um, but keep in mind that you probably want to keep serial numbers and stuff like that because a lot of lawnmowers look the same. So you go get, I don't know, a Craftsman lawnmower, they're all going to look the same. You go get a Cub Cadet, they're all going to look the same. So you may want to keep some identifying information regarding your property. That way it can be recovered in the future. Um, Now, what if they're holding a machete in their hands at the time that they're taking your lawnmower? Well, if you feel that it became a robbery at that point, because a robbery is essentially a theft, but they threatened you with force or they exhibited force against you in order to effect that theft, well, it becomes a robbery and or aggravated robbery. If you feel that they're using that machete against you, it becomes an aggravated robbery. And well, deadly force is justified under Texas Penal Code Section 9.42. Deadly force is justified in defending your property against robbery. Now, you're also justified in using deadly force when defending your property against somebody escaping with the property. So they committed a robbery, they're escaping with the property. You can use deadly force to defend against that or to prevent them from escaping. But you do have to consider a few things. Now, I'm not advocating at all that you be a victim. But if it is a piece of junk lawnmower, why are you going to use that level of force against somebody else? Because that lawnmower probably doesn't cost you a whole lot. And you missing work, you getting an attorney, you doing all these other things, the stress of not being able to sleep, that you thinking that people are going to come after you. And look, I'm telling you from experience because I see these things. I've seen these things at work where somebody does something legal or illegally, uses force against somebody else, threatens or kills somebody. And even if they were not justified, or even if they were a family member of somebody who did something, there are people who are always concerned about someone else taking vengeance. So it may not be worth using force against somebody. at that level for property that's not even worth it. So, um, I don't know if I answered all your questions, Dylan, but let me see. Real life purge. Dylan, you look out the window and you see someone trying to steal your vehicle. Is deadly force acceptable? It depends. So during the day, under 941, somebody just stealing your property, doesn't matter how much it's worth. Um, Force other than deadly force is justified. That is it. You cannot use deadly force for a theft during the day. It doesn't matter the value of the property. But if it is at nighttime under 942, theft at night, deadly force is justified if you feel that that is the only thing that you could have done in order to defend the property, and or doing anything else other than using deadly force you felt would expose you to a substantial risk of serious bodily injury or death. So that is very close to what the code actually says, but I would go and read it for yourself. So during the day, deadly force for theft is not justified. Now, if it were a robbery during the day, deadly force would be justified. At nighttime, deadly force is justified for theft and or robbery. Guys, give me a second real quick. You don't have your person? Okay, sorry about that, dudes. Um, Let me see. What about if someone threatens to burn your house and is playing with a lighter? Well, under 942 of the Penal Code, arson is one of the things that you can use deadly force against. So they're trying to burn your house down. You can use deadly force to defend your property, as per 942 of the Penal Code. Why not during the day? I really can't tell you why not during the day, Charlie, but that is how the code is written. During the day is force other than deadly force to defend people from interfering with your property. Under 942, it's at nighttime, or if it's a robbery, aggravated robbery. Kevin Gomez. So if they take from your property during the day, it's not justified. But if they break in or attempt to rob you, it is. Am I correct? During the day, yes. I know it's a little confusing. So during the day, if somebody attempts to force their way into your home, into your occupied vehicle, or your place of business, you can use deadly force to defend yourself. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. If they're forcing their way in, you can use deadly force to defend yourself. Of course, you're going to be the one that has to determine whether they were forcing their way in or not. But if they are trying to break in while you're in there, you can use deadly force. Vehicle, place of business, or residence, any time of the day. But other than that, if it is for theft during the day, you cannot use deadly force at all. There are no instances where deadly force is justified to defend property against theft during the day. At nighttime, there is. I hope that answered your question there, Kevin. So let me get back to the great to the penal code here. 905, reckless injury of an innocent third person. So if you use force against somebody else, say you decide to get involved in something like somebody's being robbed or whatever it may be, or you're being robbed and you decide to take action and you send some rounds in the direction of the bad guy and you miss and you hit somebody else that was an innocent bystander, you are going to be liable for that under section 905 of the Texas Penal Code, reckless injury of an innocent person or an innocent third person. So you guys have heard the phrase that there is an attorney attached to every bullet. So just keep that in mind. If you decide to get involved in something, you will either take the credit or you will take the blame. You'll save the day, or you're going to be uh, the person who ruined everything for somebody else. So just keep that in mind. Civil remedies are not affected under 9.06. So that means even if you're justified in doing anything, you could always be sued. So I do have a good friend attorney, Christopher Waller out of Nueces County, who stated that if you are charged with an offense and you are found not guilty, that the civil proceeding is probably not going to be very favorable for the person trying to sue you. So just also keep that in mind as well. Public duty, you have no public duty to get involved. So, say you come across, you see an offense or you see a crime taking place, somebody is being robbed, um, a store is being robbed, you see somebody being raped, anything like that, you have no obligation to get involved. It doesn't matter if you have a firearm, doesn't matter if you have a license to carry. You have no legal obligation to get involved. Morally, that's going to be completely up to you. I probably would, well, I would have to get involved. I'm bound to some degree by the law to get involved. But the average person, um, you have no duty to get involved. You can, though. You can get involved to help somebody else under 933 of the Penal Code, defense of a third person. So let me give you this example. So, how is it that you could defend yourself against somebody with a baseball bat? So, a baseball bat is capable of causing serious bodily injury or death. So, if somebody is threatening you with a baseball bat, essentially you could use deadly force against that person to prevent them from seriously harming you or killing you. So, if you could use that level of force against somebody under those circumstances, you would be able to use the same level of force against somebody to defend somebody else under the same circumstances. So if somebody is attacking your spouse or one of your children or your friend or your neighbor with a baseball bat, well, that baseball bat is capable of causing serious bodily injury or death to them. So then you are justified in using deadly force to defend them. So the same level of force you'd use to defend yourself under those circumstances, you may be able to use the same level of force to defend somebody else under those same circumstances, if that makes sense. Okay. I hope that was clear enough for you guys. Necessity. So, this is what most of us will be judged on if we ever use force against somebody else. So, conduct is justified if the actor reasonably believes that the conduct is immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm. So, um, it is justified if whatever it is that you did was immediately necessary. So you needed to do it right now to stop something from happening to you right now, right? Immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm. You needed to do something right now to stop something from happening to you right now. And whatever it is that you did, the level of force that you use against somebody else must be reasonable depending on whatever it is that you are trying to avoid. So, for example, I'm trying to avoid somebody pushing me, me shooting them 2 times in the chest would not be viewed as reasonable, in my opinion. I'm an ordinary, reasonable person, and I would not consider 2 shots to the chest to be a reasonable response to somebody who is trying to push somebody else. Now, um, if they're coming at you with a baseball bat, right? Same example as I used earlier. Well, that's capable of causing serious bodily injury or death. So the 2 shots to the chest would probably be viewed a lot more reasonable. So whatever it needs, the force that you use needs to be immediately necessary to avoid imminent harm, and it must be reasonable according to whatever it is that you're trying to avoid. How you doing, David? Good to see you here, buddy. Oh man, I lost my penal code here. All right. So I hope that was clear and I did not confuse anybody. 931 is self-defense, the things that you can use to defend yourself against somebody else. So entering your home, entering your business, entering your occupied vehicle, attempting to kidnap you, attempting to pull you from your home, pull you from your vehicle, pull you from your business, aggravated kidnapping, sexual assault, robbery, or aggravated robbery. So the difference between theft, burglary, robbery, and aggravated robbery. I'm going to give you the differences real quick here. Theft is them just taking your property or depriving you of your property, whether you're there or not. They're just taking your stuff. That is a theft. A burglary is they're making entry into a structure in order to commit that theft and or to commit a felony or an assault. That would be a burglary. Um, but there are different types of burglaries. There are burglaries of buildings, there are burglaries of vehicles, burglaries of coin operated machines, and burglary of a habitation. And the way you can defend them all is a little bit different. So, deadly force is generally justified in defending a habitation that is occupied, not a storage shed, if that makes sense. But again, they're making their way into a storage shed at night. That is considered a theft at nighttime. So, you do you at that point. Um, Let me see here. Let me go to the next one. Now, 932 is deadly force to defense in defense of a person. That is where you'll be able to find the things that you would be able to use deadly force to defend yourself against. But I already explained those things. Essentially, going to be theft at nighttime, arson, robbery, aggravated robbery, sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault, aggravated kidnapping. Those are essentially the things that you would be able to use to defend yourself against. Alejandro Avila, how are you doing, bud? Thank you so very much for joining us. Okay. Let me see what else we have here. 933 is where you're going to find defense of a third person, protection of life or health. So somebody's trying to hurt themselves, you can use force against somebody else to stop them from hurting themselves. But if they're trying to commit suicide, there's no point in you using deadly force to stop them from doing that, right? 941 is where you're going to find protection of your own property, but I already explained 941. And 942 is the deadly force. 943 is protection of a third person's property. So just like with self-defense, that you can defend yourself a certain way depending on whatever it is that's going on. Well, you can defend somebody else's property if they've entrusted you with it. The same way that you'd be able to defend yours. So if it's just a theft, well, you can defend it the way you can defend a theft. If it's a burglary, well, you can defend it the way you would defend your home uh, from a burglary or arson, stuff like that. But it's a good idea that you have um, some sort of agreement between you and that other person, like your neighbor. Your neighbor says, "Hey, I'm going to be out of town. I'm entrusting you with my home, like if it were yours." But just be careful because they don't always tell you that they're going to be having people come over and check their home. So they may be having somebody that you've never seen before come and snoop around the property and rile you up. So uh, be careful. Use of device to protect property. This is a good one here. Section 9.44. Use of device to protect property. Essentially a booby trap. So booby traps are somewhat legal, but they are not. So let me try to read this to you verbatim. The justification afforded by sections 9, the justification afforded by sections 9.41 and 9.43 applies to the use of device to protect land or tangible movable property. The device is not designed to cause or known by the actor to create a substantial risk of causing death or serious bodily injury. So you can use a booby trap, but you cannot use a booby trap that is capable of causing serious bodily injury or death. Keep that in mind. So you have like a little electric fence around your home, essentially a booby trap. But if you have something that's going to blow someone's leg off, you can't do that. Or chop their arm off, can't do that. You have a board with nails sticking up on the bottom, somebody comes onto your property and steps on it, you're going to get yourself into trouble if you are found liable for doing that. So keep that in mind. So that is essentially what I have here that I'm really going to go through 941 on chapter 9. But let's get back to this whole Pittsburgh thing here. So Pittsburgh, really big city, and their law enforcement officers are not going to be responding to calls for service like they normally do. So how big of a problem would that be for you wherever it is that you are? Are you capable, one, of defending your home? Are you capable of defending yourself? And are you willing to? Those are some questions that you probably need to ask yourself now, and not when you end up in a bad spot. So, um, law enforcement have to respond. They're not there when you need them. You are there. What is it that you're going to do in order to defend yourself? So that is something that you really need to consider. And essentially, that is what we're here for. So we want to answer people's questions if they have questions on what it is that they can do, what it is that they can't do. And we also want to teach people how to be able to do it. We don't just want to tell you that these are the things that the law says that you can do, or these are where you can find the laws that tell you what you can do. We want to teach you how to do those things as well. So if you are ever in the South Texas area and you want to attend one of our range day events, we'd be more than happy to have you. So just keep that in mind. But if there is anything else, any other questions that anybody has, I would like to hear them. If not, we will be closing it up in a few minutes. So I hope I looked through everybody's stuff. Sael, thank you so very much for being here. That's right. That is exactly correct. You are your first responder. You most definitely are your first responder. Thank you very much, Marcos. I appreciate you, man. Cool. Well, if you guys follow us on Facebook, please like, share, comment, do any of those things to help us grow. Um, Sometimes we are suppressed a little bit, not too very fun. We are greatly suppressed on TikTok. So if you have a TikTok, feel free to go over there and help us out there as well. And on YouTube, if you could do that for us, we would greatly appreciate you. So Tony is asking, road rage follows you home and charges at you. If you believe that they are going to put you at a substantial risk of serious bodily injury or death, you use a level of force that you believe that you need in order to defend yourself. If you think you're going to die, well, do what you need to do. You know what I mean? Um, but it's essentially going to be a judgment call. So is it just some crazy Karen on the phone just giving you all sorts of trouble? You know, do you really need to use force against that person? If it's somebody that is charging you, well, you do what you need to do. Now, everybody is also built a little different. Um, Reasonableness is subjective. So if you are a 115, 5 foot female and somebody's attacking you and that person's like 6 foot, well, you're going to be, whatever you do to defend yourself is probably going to be viewed a lot more reasonable versus you being the same size as your attacker, if that makes sense. But me personally, if you know they're following you, I probably wouldn't go home. Do these laws apply for level 3 guards and officers? It is a strange thing, man, that all the laws, chapter 9, use of force, it applies to both the average person, to peace officers, well, to all three security officers. It applies to everybody. So, law enforcement officers don't have any special right to use force against somebody else. Nothing more than what the average person has. The only difference is that they are obligated or commissioned to get involved in other people's business, if that makes sense. So the same laws that bind you as the average person bind everybody else. So yes, they do apply to level 3 officers. Best recommendation to keep farm at home at night. I feel like leaving it unlocked and charge is not good due to safety. So yeah, you probably should keep it somewhere where um, you can get it and it is not at a risk to anybody. So, guys, thank you so very much again. I really appreciate you. Show us a little bit of support. Like, follow, share. And I look forward to seeing you guys out at the range in the future. So, I'll catch you guys next week. We're going to go live again on Tuesday. So, I'm going to try to do this regularly. If you have any questions for me between now and then, feel free to reach out to us. But I look forward to seeing you. Thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. And God bless and keep one in the chamber. Full armor training. Thank you so very much, bud. But you guys have a very good evening. You guys take it easy.